Hey guys, BlockyD here, and today I'm bringing you a formal Vulcan tutorial. Lots of gameplay commentaries for Vulcan, but not a lot of formal tutorials. Actually, I don't think there are any, which is why I'm doing this. Boat Murder did do a tutorial for Vulcan, but it was written, not video, and we kind of talk about different things, I checked, but I will link to it in the description. So, alright, let's start with a general overview of Vulcan. Vulcan is a support tank character he is very much skewed toward tankiness. His special talent, you could say, is solo laning, because he is a very heavy pusher early game, if you choose that route, and he is a very heavy zoner late game. You can choose either route at the beginning. Generally I choose pusher first, but at the beginning you can't choose both. You have to choose one or the other, and I choose pusher, generally. He's kind of seen as an underpowered god, just not the best pick in any given circumstance. But in all honesty, he's pretty good. Really is pretty good. He just has a high learning curve, and he's got a pretty high skill ceiling too. So, alright, let's dive straight into his abilities. Now, his first ability is called Backfire, and Vulcan will shoot out a fireball, dealing at the beginning it'll do 85 and it'll scale by 60 after 325, dealing with an additional 70% of your magical power. Now, it's a very interesting move. It's his little burst of damage that can be used to finish off enemy gods. It's his lane clear, sorry about that. It's also his escape / dodge. Now you'll notice that now you'll probably guess from the title of the move, Backfire, and you also saw earlier that when I use this, I'm pushed backwards 30 feet in game. Now, you can use this to get out of ults, but it's important to note that during those frames where you're being pushed back, you are invincible. Nothing can touch you. It's a very small mode, it's a very small frame of time, but it's pretty useful. It's useful for dodging all sorts of things. In the practice game I just played, I dodged He-Bo's ults tons of times with that. Tons of times. I didn't even have to buy Aegis. Oops, sorry. Gave you a sneak peek of the next ability. Gotta look away. No. That's Thumper 16. We'll go over that later. Sorry, it was just habit to put that up. Yeah, Backfire does pretty good damage. As I said earlier, starts at 85, scales up by 60 for each rank to 325, and it gets 70% of your magical power. Vulcan in general won't have that much magical power, but this is a definite increase. It's a pretty good one. It's very useful. And it's also very good it's not a very good escape, but it is a escape. And it's pretty useful in those circumstances. Yeah, pretty good, pretty good. The thing is though, it's very hard to hit with latency. Hold on a second, just a second, I'll be right back. And we're back, alright, sorry about that, had to check something real quick. We were just finishing up Backfire. So, yeah, Backfire is Vulcan's lane clear. If you're solo laning, this is the ability you're going to want to max out first so you can clear waves faster, pushing the lane back towards their tower. It's also his escape / dodge. Very odd, very hard to get a handle of at first, but once you get it, it's very useful. And it's also his burst. You can kill a lot of gods pretty easily with this if they're low health. Just the last game I played, I got 3 kills due to this. Just chasing. Vulcan can chase with this. It's a unusual tactic, but since he's so tanky, he can chase, taking hits. Once he catches up that enemy god, if you can hit him with this, and they're low enough, you'll get a kill, and then you can just walk back. Love if he stays hunched over until you do something. But yeah, that's Backfire. Let's move on to his next ability, Inferno Cannon. Now, I said earlier that positioning is very important with Vulcan, and that's partly because his abilities revolve around placing turrets. And that's Inferno Cannon right there, that little golden blue beauty. It'll shoot out a fireball every second, I believe, and it'll start off dealing 45 damage, but it can go up all the way up to 145, plus 35% of your magical power. Not that much. However, you see these turrets have a health bar. They can be destroyed. They just don't expire. They'll stay there forever until you place a new one. You can only have one of each at a time. But once they run out of health, they die. Now, their health and protection scale with Vulcans. They get 20% of whatever Vulcans have. Whatever Vulcan has. if Vulcan has 2,000 health, they get 400 health. If Vulcan has 1,000 protections, they get 200 protections. That's a totally reasonable number. And that's part of his passive, which is called Forge. He transfers a percentage of his protections and health to his turrets. And also, you'll notice, well, if their health bars are the slightest bit depleted, like Thumper, right here, you'll see little green numbers above it, and the health bar will be going up. Like, it'll go up, then it'll go back down. That's because when Vulcan is within 30 feet of his turrets, they'll regen 3% of their health. That doesn't sound like a lot, but it happens often enough that it's considerable. It'll help a lot. Also, both the Inferno Cannon and Thumper 16, this little weird looking thing here, also gain a percentage of Vulcan's penetrations. You always want to go magical penetration, and I believe they both gain 20%. Alrighty there. So yeah, Inferno Cannon, this is Vulcan's primary damage dealer. And early game is pretty weak, and it's not that this, like, the brief second you're putting it out before it gets established, it only has 1 health. So enemies can take that out right away, and you want to be careful that you're not putting it right in their face. And you also want to be careful with where you put it. Now, you might think it's a good idea to put it into middle of the lane like this, because it covers a whole lane. It covers the whole lane, right? Wrong, because it'll be like, oh, he put down a turret. He'll just walk around and get in your face. Vulcan's, one of his weaknesses, he's a melee tank, but honestly, his auto attacks do very little damage. Even with the new magical in hand, which I think he has, very little damage, very negligible. He doesn't really have a way to make people back off. Well, yeah, with Inferno Cannon, you're going to want to place it on the side, so they can't walk behind it, and it'll probably cover most of the lane. This is a very narrow area here, but even in the wider lanes of Conquest, it'll cover most of the area. Or at the very least, sorry about that, indigestion, it'll cover most of the lane. It'll keep them away from you. Now, I'm going to go over to the practice god over there. Inferno Cannon synergize with Backfire in a very interesting way. When an enemy god is hit with Backfire, they'll have this like little red targeting circle hovering around their waist as a debuff, and Inferno Cannon will prioritize them over all minions in that given amount of time. Now you'll see it on Raw there. It lasts 4 seconds, I believe. And during that time, Inferno Cannon will prioritize the god over all other targets, and it will deal an extra 10% damage. It's not something you want to count on, but it's useful when they're just what? But it's useful. It's useful when an enemy god is like hiding like right behind their minions. And the turret is just attacking the minions. You want it to attack the god, obviously. So you just pop out Backfire, do a good deal of damage to the wave, and get the god to back off. It's a pretty useful mechanic. And
First blood.
what? Oh, I left my Inferno Cannon up there. It killed Ra by himself. But yeah. In general, this turret is not going to last forever in most team fights. In most team fights, it will maybe last for 2 seconds if you don't use your ultimate. But we'll get to that later. It's really only meant to land 3 or 4 hits, but in all, this is actually pretty powerful over time. A couple matches ago, I played against an Aphrodite, and a lot of things I do with the turrets, once the lane is pushed all the way through the tower, I'll just put her right outside the edge of the tower, so it keeps them from harassing me. And she's saying, well, okay, I'll take out that turret. And she just stood there and took hits over and over. And the turret was healing while she was hitting it, so she couldn't take it out. And eventually, it killed her. She just wasn't watching her health, and just the turret killed her. I didn't even use Backfire. I honestly didn't realize what was happening until she had like 25% health. And I was like, oh, I wish I'd recorded it, but I hadn't. So yeah, this thing is actually pretty powerful. It's only meant to get out 3 or 4 hits. So if it gets out, if you put it out and it dies after that, don't feel bad. But what you do want to avoid is just putting it out and it just dying instantly. If you put it in a bad spot, they just focused it, try not to let that happen. It's got a 15-second cooldown, which is pretty heavy, and early on, Vulcan is very mana hungry. So a misplaced cannon it's a very large setback early on. You'll buy a lot of consumables and probably meditate to offset that, but it's still a 15-second cooldown. In the heat of battle, that's a lot. Alrighty there. And another little interesting tidbit about Infernal Cannon and Thumper 16 is that if you're just in a tower with minions, after all the minions will die, if there are turrets in there, it will target the turrets over you. So you can use that to extend the time you're attacking a tower. However, if Thumper 16 or the Inferno Cannon, Thumper 16 is this little blender looking thingy, are hitting a god, the tower will prioritize you. That's why I try not to put Thumper down in a tower unless I'm tower diving, because then the tower will focus you, and you'll probably take a lot of damage. Thumper's radius is so large that it's very probable an enemy god will walk into it. So alright, I think that's everything about Infernal Cannon. Let's move on to Thumper 16. In general, hold on real quick. Infernal Cannon is the ability you want to max second, and Backfire being the one you want to max first. Now Thumper 16 is this pretty big area of effect. It does pretty negligible damage. It starts out at 10%, goes up to 35 for each tick, and the damage is pretty often. These little lines, I think, coincide with the damage dealt, but it does so little damage, it only gets 15% of your magical power. It's just not that useful. The only useful thing about it is it's slow. However, the slow scales with it. It starts out at 5% and goes up 5% each time to 25% at max level. It's pretty much useless if it's not at max level, so you want to max this last. It's not that useful. The only real use is when you don't want to use Infernal Cannon to finish off clearing a wave, so you'll use Backfire to clear the wave, then you'll put out Thumper to take out the archers and finish off the fighters. That's pretty much the only use to it. But it's not completely useless. I mean, that's pretty useful, so you don't waste Inferno Cannon. Also, if you're getting chased, it helps that the radius is so large, because if you're getting chased, put it down at your feet. Generally, they won't stop to kill the turret. If they do, you'll gain extra time, which is great. But even if they don't, you'll gain even more time, because they'll probably have to walk all the way through this, getting slowed by up to 25%. Late game, it can really help you out a lot. That's pretty much all of its use. It can body block for the other turret, or just put it right in front of it. So they'll either have to go around Thumper, or they'll focus Thumper over Inferno Cannon. Its job is just basically to be a patsy so Inferno Cannon can do its job. So, alright. Oh, and another potential use for it is that if you're like mid to late game, you'll need a decent amount of health and protections to do this. You can just drop by a jungle camp, or even a buff camp, drop off Thumper, and come back later. It'll clear the buff camp if you're a high enough level. You'll have to be around level 16 or 17, but it can clear even the hard camps then. Or just a regular harpy camp, you can just leave that there, you'll get the extra experience you need to level up. But yeah, pretty limited amount of utility. Alrighty then, let's move on to his ultimate, Volcanic Overdrive. It's a pretty cool name, but it's not that great. It is pretty good, don't get me wrong. Vulcan is a good character, but his ultimate is a little bit lackluster. What Volcanic Overdrive does is that it will make your turrets gain massive regeneration and firing speed. I'll exhibit it here. You'll see they'll go big. The Infernal Cannon will shoot in a 360-degree radius and auto-target gods. And you've probably heard that there. Its firing speed also increases by 50%. And I have the golden skin on. Got him. I have. Sorry, dry throat. I have the golden skin on, so you couldn't really tell. But Vulcan will also glow gold. He's not immune to crowd control during this ultimate, which lasts 6 seconds. However, he does gain protections and movement speed. So, generally what I do, once I get to level 5, I put a point in it, then level up everything else first. It's just not that good. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's good, and later on, the extra protections and movement speed really will help, but it just doesn't help that much. I mean, you start off with 30 protections, which is okay, but it only goes up to 70, which, in a life or death situation, that's not going to help you out that much. I mean, it might get you away with the bare sliver of health, but still, not that useful. But yeah, Volcanic Overdrive is actually pretty good. It's, the main thing I use it for is tower diving. You have 2 low health enemies hugging a tower. You can just walk in, take the first few hits, activate Volcanic Overdrive first, and then lay down your turrets. I actually did it wrong here when I attacked Ra. You should always activate Volcanic Overdrive first, because even if you already have a turret down, it'll take a second or two. It'll stop firing and go into super mode and just go like toom 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 toom. However, if you activate Volcanic Overdrive and then put it down, there won't be that slight delay. It will be the delay of putting the turret down, but that'll only be like 1 second as opposed to 2 seconds before. Also, what happens a lot is that when I already have turrets down, or if I don't, I'll place down the turret, then activate Volcanic Overdrive. But even that short amount of time, they'll already have destroyed my turret, so I'll just be standing there looking like a fool, glowing. Activating my ult and it's just completely worthless. It really is bugs. It still happens to me because I forget to activate it first, or I think I don't need to. Just always do it. It's always a good idea. So yeah, just to reiterate, activate your ult first, then put down your turrets. The buff lasts 6 seconds, and it essentially makes your turrets invincible. Not necessarily. They can be killed if like 2 ADCs focus one of them, but that happens very rarely. People really they really underestimate how much damage Vulcan can do with his turrets, so even if you do activate your ult, they'll kind of forget about it. And its best utility really is tower diving, either forcing enemies away from a low health tower so your teammates can rush in and destroy it safely, or pushing away low health enemies or possibly killing them. Infernal Cannon has a surprisingly high range because even if they're not getting shot at, the amount of is like, say Infernal Cannon fires a shot and then they leave, they'll still get hit with one more shot because it goes by the amount of time they were in its radius, not how far it actually is. That's why you'll sometimes see like an Infernal Cannon go like, way farther than it should. So alright, yeah. Basically, his ultimate just increases his little zoning ability, his area of denial. Don't come in here. This is my space, like Ymir's ultimate. Like this, no, if an enemy god just stands here, he'll be dead in 15 seconds. 10 seconds even if they're squishy. And with his ultimate will increase that. However, Infernal Cannon will still only target one god, so it's not too good in team fights. Oh, one more thing about Thumper. You already know about the slow. If an enemy god is running away, you can get ahead of them and put it down and slow them down, keep them from escaping. But, alrighty. I think that's about it with his abilities. Let's move that clock again. Dang it. Let's move on to his build. You will both build and play very differently if you're in a solo lane compared to a duo lane. In a solo lane, you'll max Backfire first. In a duo lane, you'll probably max Infernal Cannon first. Probably. You can still play Pusher Vulcan in a duo lane. But however, in a solo lane, you're probably going to want Vampiric Shroud, because you're going to be getting the last hit on all of them, and if you get the last hit on all the minions in a wave, you'll get back like 60 health and 60 mana, which that can really help a lot. But if you're in a duo lane, Vulcan will probably almost never get the last hit. So you'll want to buy Watcher's Gift and just make it official. Your partner can get all the last hits, and you'll get the bonuses. Also, that extra MP5, HP5 and health, and the extra GP5, gold P5, the extra gold will help a lot too. Because Vulcan is a support character, he tends to get underfed kinda easily. Alright, let's move on to build. I've already said Vulcan is like a he's like a hybrid tank bruiser, heavily skewed toward tankiness. So, generally, I start off building with Greaves. At its core, I play Vulcan as a tank. He can take hits very well. He can body block. I've saved a lot of people. Saved a lot of people in my time. However, you can get Shoes of the... Well, you can get Shoes of the Magi for physical protection or Shoes of Focus for your cooldown reduction. Since Vulcan is so ability focused and his cooldowns are pretty long, you're going to want some sort of cooldown reduction. Either in the form of Chronos' Suspended, Boots of Focus, or most likely the Breastplate of Valor. So yeah, I will generally buy Watcher's Gift if I'm in duo lane, or Vampiric Shroud if I'm in a solo lane, and then get Greaves. Well, actually, that's not true. I'll actually get Watcher's Gift or Well, never mind, I messed that up. If I'm in a solo lane, I'll get Vampiric Shroud, and then I'll get Warlock Sash. Because if you're in a solo lane, you're going to be building stacks pretty easily. And solo laning is almost like Vulcan's. What's going on? Why am I oh, I left my turds up in the minion range, that's right. If you're solo laning, you're going to want stacking items, because you're just going to be getting so many minion kills. By the 15 or 16 minute mark, you can have 100 stacks of Warlock Sash pretty easily. And I've even seen people go Warlock Sash and Book of Thoth, and even crazier, get the Gauntlet of Thebes on top of that 3 stacking items. It's pretty insane. If you can manage to do all that, it'll be pretty crazy. But that's for solo lane. For dual lane, you're probably going to want to get Watcher's Gift. Here, I'll set up the dual lane build first, because that's probably what you're going to be doing. You're going to want Watcher's Gift, Greaves. I always get Reinforced Greaves for the crowd control reduction. And then you're probably going to want Void Stone. It doesn't give you any health, but it does give you magical power and magical protection, which will transfer to your turrets. I tend to get Focus Void Stone, because your turrets also gain a portion of your penetrations. And the Void Stone is like a perfect little package for Vulcan. Power, protection, and penetration. It's just so good. Yeah, I sound a little gross. After that, if I'm not building stacking items, I tend to get Breastplate of Valor. It'll help out with Vulcan's mana issues early on. Sometimes I get in front of Void Stone if our team doesn't really need to do that more damage. If our IDC has it covered, I'll get Breastplate of Valor first for the cooldown reduction and the extra mana and the physical protection, of course. The extra mana will really help out a lot early game. Just Vulcan overall, he's a pretty mana hungry character, especially early on. If I go solo or dual lane, I always get 4 health potions and 4 mana potions on top of Meditate. Meditate, it's a pretty important skill to Vulcan. I get it on every god I buy just in case. I'm not, I generally don't play. I just don't find myself against a team where I really need to buy Aegis or beads. It just doesn't happen. I don't know why. But I always just give a slot to meditate, because there's always a moment where I'm like, oh dang it, I'm out of mana. I can just hit F, taken care of. But yeah, I don't need to defend my active choices. That's not the place for this. After Breastplate of Valor, I tend to go for something offensive. Offensive. And a good item is Obsidian Shard. It gives you a good deal of magical power, and you gain plus 33% magical penetration. It'll really help you deal some damage, especially against tanks. And after that, if you're still thirsting for more magical power, you can get the ever fabulous Rod of Tahuti, plus 125% magical power, increases your magical power by 25% of what it was before, including the 125 granted by Rod of Tahuti. Now, one important point I forgot to mention before starting this, which I probably should have. Vulcan's turrets do not apply on-hit effects. That means Vulcan's turrets do not apply Gem of Isolation or Spear of the Magus. Backfire will, but his turrets will not. So generally you want to stay away from those. And I see when I look at the popular items, Gem of Isolation is one. Now I doubt they're getting Gem of Binding since, melee tank guy. So don't get Gem of Isolation. It won't help. I've watched videos of it being tested. I highly doubt it's changed. But yeah, it just won't work. I'm sorry. Now this is a very bruisery build I've got going right here. I kind of just went from defense into, magical power. Generally I get 4 defense items and then 2 magical power items. A good item for Vulcan, especially if you're in a teamfighting mode of Sovereignty, it'll give you health and physical protection. Generally, the basic rule with defense items for Vulcan, you want to get health and protection, because that'll make his turrets all the more durable. Really, you want to focus more on health, because that really means a lot more. Because they'll get more health than they will defense, because 20% you get way more health. You get like 5 times as much health as you do protection here. Actually, 6 times as much even. Actually, over 7 times as much health as physical protection from this. And Sovereignty, going back to just the specific item, I'm not completely positive about this. I know Vulcan's turrets are affected by Odin's Shout, which increases their attack speed, So I think they're affected by sovereignty. That may be just gods. I'm not sure, but I think it might work. And it's just a general item. It'll help in general, so I always buy it. I don't know a way to test that. I don't know. Another good physical protection item for Vulcan is Mystical Mark. It exudes an aura that does 40 magical damage a second. You can see it here, the little pulsing red lines. People tend to get in Vulcan's face because he needs room to use his turrets. So Mystical Mark will help dissuade that. It'll keep him from staying there too long, at least. Unless you're like alone and you get ganked by 3 people, then it won't matter. But yeah, if you choose to forego boots for some reason, I recommend Hide of the Leviathan. Not a lot of reason to buy it unless you didn't buy boots. You can almost see this as like higher class boots because you get health, mana, and 45% physical and magical protection. And you also get the 30% reduction to all crowd control. However, you lose the movement speed, and I like having extra movement speed. I like being able to zip around. So, alrighty there. This is what I would say is a duo, or actually, it doesn't differ that significantly. The only difference between a solo and a dual lane build for Vulcan would be, depending on your playstyle, could be more or less aggressive, but in a dual lane, you're probably not going to try to get stacking items. I wouldn't, at least. You still can, by all means. Just ask your teammate if you can get the last hit. But, yeah. If I had a solo lane, I was... Actually, I'm going to try this in a 1v1 joust later. I'm going to get Warlock Sash, Book of Thoth, Gauntlet of Thieves, and Ethereal Staff. Now, that's going to be a wicked combo, because I will be increasing my health, mana, and magical power like crazy. Ethereal Staff, what it does, it takes 2% of your maximum health and converts it to magical power. And it gives you a good deal of... And it gives you... Oop, did the game freeze there? No. It gives you a good deal of magical power and health just by itself. It's a pretty good item, to be honest. But if you got Warlock Sash, which increases health, and you got Book of Thoth, which increases mana and increases... And Book of Thoth, I'll pull that up too. I'll just get it going. It'll just be crazy synergy between these items. I think you'd end up with a really, really high attack and defense. So that's something I'm going to try out later. I'll link to the video into the description, but yeah. This is just a crazy, I'm going to get so many stacks solo lane build. I probably actually wouldn't advise this in a regular game, just if you're having fun. Gauntlet of Thieves, it's really the last pure health item in the game, but oh well. That's okay, I used to play it on Hades a lot, but... Alrighty, so yeah, general overview of builds with Vulcan in generally. Oh, wait, no, I forgot one item. If you're having trouble with sustain, I highly recommend a Stone of Gaia. It's one of my favorite items. The only beef I have with on a Vulcan is that it doesn't give health, and the passive only affects him, but it's really good. The passive is actually very useful. If you get on a really pure tank like Ymir or Sobek, you'll notice the difference almost instantly in your sustain. Sorry about that. Dry throat again. Yeah, it's okay on Vulcan. I like it. It gives you a good deal of magical protection, regeneration, especially regeneration with the passive and the HP 5 it gives. Alrighty. Also, in case you haven't heard of it before, Bulwark of Hope. It's just a general standard magical protection item. It's got a pretty good passive. It gives you a lot of health and it gives you a lot of magical protection. In general, if you need a magical protection item on Vulcan, go for Bulwark of Hope first. Bulwark or Bulwark? I think it's Wark. But, yeah. Other than that, I can only advise you to build to the situation. If the enemy team has 4 ranged attack damage physical carries, build a ton of physical defense. Maybe pick up Hide of the Nemean Lion. I didn't include that in this build because after it's been nerfed, it's just not that useful anymore. I don't know. And I don't find Vulcan getting hit by basic ranged attacks a lot. Yeah, it was nerfed kind of heavily, and I don't know. I just don't use it that much anymore. By all means, you can if you want. But yeah, quick overview of builds. Get consumables at first. Vulcan is very mana hungry. In the beginning, start off with Watcher's Gift if you're in a dual lane. If you're in a solo lane, get Vampiric Shroud. And after that, I tend to build 4 defensive items, 2 offensive items. I listed my personal picks here. Breastplate of Valor is a good physical protection, so is Mystical Mark. For magical protection and health, I would go Ethereal. For magical protection, I would just go Bulwark of Hope. Don't really. In Void Stone. Void Stone is a very good item for Vulcan. For health, Gauntlet of Thebes, Ethereal Staff. That will give you a very large amount of health. If you're in a solo lane, try to buy stacking items because he can get a lot of stacks very quickly. Also, cooldown reduction is pretty important too. But, alright, I think that's it. Alright, this is the official end of the tutorial. If you were just watching to learn, you can leave now. But I'm gonna go have some fun. Oh yeah, you see that fire giant out there. Let's take him out. We can do it. We have almost 4k health. Alrighty. Activate ultimate first. Let's take this guy out. Take him, get him. Yeah, look at that health go down. It's crazy, you can't stop us. You can't stop us. Yeah. But seriously, you can leave. I'm not gonna say anything more important. Yeah, come on. Actually, I guess I am. I guess I was kind of a little tutorial on how to tower dive. You know, fire giant's kind of like a tower. Also shows Vulcan can. Oh, he's got a little throne back there. It also shows Vulcan can solo fire giant fairly easily, I guess. You can also solo Gold Fury if you really need it and no one else can do it. The only advice I can give when soloing Gold Fury is don't hit her with your auto attacks, because then she'll go for you and not your turrets. Not right away, but once your turrets, like, if I were to auto attack her after she kills Thumper, she'd go straight for me. Though she didn't end up killing Thumper, which is cool. But yeah, a little tidbit on objective clearing there. But alright, this is the real end out. Thank you guys for watching. If you liked it, leave a like or a comment. It really does help a lot. I mean, likes, more people will see this over time. A comment, it helps so much. Subscribe if you really liked it. If you have any questions, don't be afraid to comment. I'll link to Boat Murder's Vulcan guide in the description. It's a very good guide. If you're looking for specific things, it's probably better than this video tutorial. But alright, I'm Blocky T, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.